Our Toastmaster for today is Carol Kormelink, myself, a distinguished Toastmaster. And we start off our meeting with a little levity. Our theme for today is laughter. To bring us a little laughter, our joke master is Joe Swirling, who is an advanced Toastmaster silver and a competent leader, bronze, and a competent leader. Let us welcome Joe Swirling.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm Toastmaster. For today's selection under the theme laughter, I thought appropriate. Got a book, 4,800 Wisecracks, Witty Remarks, and Epigrams for all occasions. And specifically under the topic of laughter, first quote is attributed to Will Rogers. Everything is funny as long as it happens to somebody else. The rest of these I won't bother with the originator because they're all pretty well unknown. The most valuable sense of humor is the kind that enables a person to see instantly what isn't safe to laugh at. Laughter is the mind's intonation. There are ways of laughing which have the sound of counterfeit coins. I can usually judge a fellow by what he laughs at. Laughter is not at all a bad beginning for a friendship, but is by far the best ending for one. And the most completely lost of all days is the one on which we have not laughed. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Joe. I liked your Cheetos poem the best of that. That was great. And again, welcome to our TV Toastmasters. Sometimes when I'm watching a program and they don't mention what it is, and I just tuned in, I always wonder, what am I watching? So you're watching the TV Toastmasters Advanced Club at the Anderson Union Township Studio. Our next portion of the meeting, Tabletopics, helps us to learn to listen to a question, think quickly, and answer effectively. Our Tabletopics, Verna Gibson is a competent leader, just came back from a vacation in the wilds of Canada. Let us welcome Verna Gibson.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster and honored guests. The purpose of Tabletopics is to give you a chance to speak spontaneously for 2 to 3 minutes on a topic for which you have no advanced preparation. This is the portion of the program where we learn to think on our feet. Today's topic is laughter, and the name that came to my mind immediately was Norman Cousins. He wrote Anatomy of an Illness. In this book, he told how he used laughter to overcome pain and depression while living with cancer. Is it possible, he wondered, that laughter has therapeutic purposes or value? What he found was that a hearty belly laugh gave him an hour or more of pain-free sleep. According to Cousins, laughter is inner jogging. How would you respond to the statement, hearty laughter is a good way to jog internally without having to go outside? Joe Swirling.
As both your initial introduction to that, plus as illustrated in my earlier presentation on laughter, anything that gets your system working vitalizes and gets our entire system, gets our blood pumping better, we're breathing more, and the more of that we have, it's always better for our health. Many of us these days are confined to either sitting at a computer desk or sitting at a piece of machinery that we're just limited in what we can do. But we can always be making use of that humor, whether it's external humor that we share with a group or internal humor that if you're in a boring meeting or you're doing a boring job that doesn't require much other thinking, think of humorous things that have happening, or maybe a prank you'd like to pull on somebody else, like maybe the boss that put you in that situation, and that humor will help you get through the day and with more enthusiasm and vigor.
Thank
Topic,
you, Joe.
Master.
Thank you. Very good. Now, if you believe that laughter has therapeutic value, how would you respond to Arnold Glasgow's statement, laughter is a tranquilizer with no side effects? Carol Kormelink.
Madam Tabletopics Master and our fellow Toastmasters and our most welcome guests at home. I believe that laughter is therapeutic, and I'm the person that believes in letting your body, given half a chance, will heal itself. And so I believe that laughter is important. And I'd like to hear you give a hearty belly laugh. And all that does, that creates endorphins in your brain and helps you feel better. And if you're feeling blue, just turning up the corners of your mouth will change the chemistry in your brain, and you can do things to make yourself feel better. And laughing is one of them. Madam Toastmaster, Tabletopics Master.
Thank you, Carol. That was terrific. The time is now to laugh and be happy. Scientist Boris Sokoloff explained, like swimming, riding, or playing golf, happiness can be learned. Let's hear your views on this statement. Steve.
Thank you, Madam Tabletopics Master, fellow Toastmasters, and our guests that are watching from home. I would heartily agree with the quote that you just presented. One of my instructors at the spinning class that I go to for fitness was telling us one morning while we're on the stationary bikes just spinning away, getting our heart rates up to the 90% target zone, that every minute we spend frowning is a minute that we have deprived ourselves of happiness. When you think about the fact that a lot of how we feel, how we look at things, is influenced by how we choose to respond, I think that it follows if we choose to look at things in an open, optimistic manner, if we look for the whimsy in things, it's going to make it a lot more tolerable, if you will, for us to deal with difficult situations. I know for myself, I like the quote, and I don't remember who to attribute it to, but it went, "He who laughs, or she who laughs, lasts." And every so often at work, I will tell my coworkers that we can't serious ourselves to death. We need to look at the absurdity of things once in a while, especially if you're dealing with something that is irrational. But overall, I would say that yes, every minute that you spend with a frown on your face, that's a minute of happiness that you won't get to experience in your life. Madam Tabletopics Master?
Great. Thank you, Steve. And Steve, I do think I have the answer to that quote for you. I'm going to look it up. I think I found that on the sheet I was looking at when I was looking at the internet last night to get this material. Men think and God laughs. Time spent laughing is time spent with the gods. It's a Japanese proverb. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Verna, for those great table topics, and they were of particular help to me because I am doing a speech about Laugh with Carol on Monday. So I picked up some things that I can use in my speech for Monday.
What future do you envision for yourself? What dreams do you have? If you want your dreams to come true, you must have confidence in yourself and your abilities. A Toastmasters Club can help you build that confidence. A low-cost learning experience for men and women. Toastmasters shows you how to express yourself clearly and effectively. Make your dreams a reality. Join a Toastmasters Club.
Ahrenholz, who is an advanced Toastmaster Silver. That means he has given 10 speeches as a competent Toastmaster, given another 5 speeches from 2 books to become a competent Toastmaster bronze, excuse me, and another 10 speeches from 5 speeches from 2 more books to become a Toastmaster silver, and now he's working on his advanced Toastmaster gold. And he will be speaking from the Storytelling Advanced Manual. His evaluator will be Verna Gibson. Verna, would you want to come up here a moment and tell us what his objectives are, since we can't hear you from back at the table there? Verna Gibson.
Okay, Steve's objectives are to learn the elements of a good story, to create and tell an original story based on a personal experience. His time is 6 to 8 minutes.
Thank you, Verna. Steve Ahrenholz, a unique week. A unique week, Steve Ahrenholz.
Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our honored guests looking in today. A unique week. In the summer of 1982, I was looking for an adventure, something to get me out of my rut. I wanted something that would really take me away from my day-to-day life. I realized that I seldom to never left pavement. I signed up for an Outward Bound course. Now, those of you who aren't familiar with Outward Bound courses are a wilderness adventure school. One of their emphases is to foster self-discovery. This is facilitated by taking the participants and immersing them in an environment which is totally foreign to what they encounter in their daily lives. I signed up for a week-long whitewater rafting course on the Deschutes River in north central Oregon. This would involve a week of rafting down the river, no phones, no electricity, no indoor plumbing, sleeping on the ground, no roof overhead, and doing this with a group of people that I have never met before. Now, some of my friends thought, Steve, you have to be crazy. That's not a vacation. You take a vacation to go and be pampered, spoiled, not to get sunburned, bug bitten, sweat all day, get up real early, have water thrown in your face, deal with people you've never met. But they're wrong. My adventure started out at the Portland International Airport. It was a Sunday morning, and I was to meet my fellow adventurers at the baggage claim area. Now, I didn't have any idea who I was looking for. Basically, I would be looking for a little sign that said Knobs, Northwest Outward Bound School, Deschutes River. I arrived at the Portland airport, got down to baggage claim, and I met up with the rest of the folks who were going to be in my patrol that week. Now, I have a picture here of us, and I don't know how well the folks at home are going to be able to see it, but I'll pass it around here for the studio audience to take a look at. We were quite a motley crew. We came from all across the country, many different disciplines, professions. We had a variety of ages. We didn't really know what we had ahead of us. We got loaded up and headed off to the point where we would put in for our week-long course. Now, if I hadn't mentioned this before, we were going to do 75 river miles that week. On our second day, we were on our adventure. We encountered the first set of rapids that we would be going through. White Horse Rapids. It was a Class 3 rapids. And one of the things about rapids is the higher the class, the more difficult it is, and the greater the likelihood of injury if you find yourself in trouble. We stopped upstream from the rapids. Our instructors took us up on the bluff that overlooked the rapids, and we mapped out just how we would captain our raft through that set of rapids, around the boulders, around the whirlpools and hydraulics. And we were doing this under sun-drenched blue skies with wide open vistas around us. Just a high desert type of environment, the smell of sagebrush. You'd hear some birds once in a while, see a hawk soaring or an eagle. You could see the peak of Mount Hood in the distance. Our instructors pointed out some of the things we wanted to avoid as we would go through this set of rapids. They also told us how we needed to coordinate the paddling. Then they told us that we would each be captaining the raft as we go through the different sets of rapids. And they would not be in the raft with us. We would be doing this on our own. They would be downstream waiting for us to come through the rapids. Okay, well, heightened anxiety? Yes. We went through this set of rapids. My boat that I was in had 4 of us, and one of us was serving as captain. We got through that set of rapids, and we were so proud of ourselves. We got over to the shore, convinced our instructors to let us take our rafts out of the river, up the side of the river to the railroad track, go upstream, put in, and come down again, just so we could confirm that we did it right. Well, we had many more sets of rapids that we would be going through over the course of the week, along with other experiences such as sleeping out under the stars, feeling that gentle breeze blow over your face in the evening, hearing the train come through the river valley at night, although it did sound like they were sanding the tracks. On our 4th day, we had several sets of rapids that we would be going through. I got to captain our raft through the set of rapids that was known as Wreck Rapids. Now, these different sets of rapids have interesting names. Usually they're associated to some extent with what's going on, what's there, the technical difficulty associated with captaining the raft through that series of rapids. Wreck Rapids is a set of Class 4 rapids. It has huge boulders in the river with water rushing around it. There are some logs and debris that has lodged itself in this part of the river canyon. And the water, tens of thousands of gallons of water, are continually rushing through here. You could see the spray, hear the roar. We stopped upstream, went up on the bank, discussed how we were going to maneuver through the rapids, and then I got to be the captain for our team. As we were angling into the rapids, our raft was caught by a current and we did a 180-degree turn. We are now headed into the rapids backwards. We tried to right the raft so that we were going through it forwards. What happened was we did another 360 and we entered the rapids going backwards. Our instructors had told us, whatever you do, don't go through the rapids sideways. You can wrap the raft on a rock and you will never get it off. People will be thrown out into the rapids, and that's not a good place to be. We went through that rapids backwards. And we came out at the bottom. We were wet, but we were happy. We had a number of other sets of rapids that we went through over the course of the week. But one of the things I rediscovered that week was that I learned so much more by participating, even if we do make mistakes, rather than not participating at all. Our instructors told us that we had done the right thing. You go through the rapids backwards or forwards, never sideways. I also came to the understanding that a lot of the rapids that we go through in our life don't necessarily occur on rivers, but we do need to participate. And one of the quotations that was in a little student handbook that they hand out to us as participants in the course. It has a series of quotations in it. One of the ones that I like is by Josh Billings. He says, "It is not only the most difficult thing to understand oneself, it is also the most inconvenient one." Madam Toastmaster?
All the education in the world won't help you get ahead in life if you can't express your ideas effectively. Every day, competition for advancement gets tougher and tougher. You need an edge. A Toastmasters club can give you that edge. A low-cost learning experience for men and women. Toastmasters gives you the confidence to express your ideas to anyone. Get the Toastmasters edge.
That moment of silence. We now have time for our speaker number 2. Sheila Mudd Baker will be giving a press conference today, and she is the Tecumseh County Administrator for her speech project number 4 from Communicating on Television. And if Joe Buil will please, her evaluator Joe Schwerling will please come up and read her objectives. Joe Schwerling.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. The specific project of this speech is purpose of the talk is to make a presentation on a controversial issue or situation concerning the speaker's organization that she represents. Speaker will then conduct a question and answer period. The specific objectives are to understand the nature of a television press conference, to prepare for an adversarial confrontation on a controversial or sensitive issue, to employ appropriate preparation methods and strategies for communicating the organization's viewpoint, and to present and maintain a positive image on television. And I'm the timer, and I'll be signaling at the appropriate parts during the presentation and the question and answer section.
Okay, thank you, Joe.
Press conference.
The press conference. Let us now welcome Sheila Mudd Baker, the Tecumseh County Administrator, for this press conference today.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, over the last 6 months, the citizens of this county have been asking our commissioners, what are we going to do about youth employment in the county of Tecumseh? This has been a very sensitive topic because so many mines in Tecumseh County have closed. So many young people have had to quit school in order to find menial jobs, in order to work and so help support their families. So many families have had to move from Tecumseh County, and the strain on the county has been getting greater and greater. The tax base has fallen. We have lost state money and federal money because on a national and state level there have been cutbacks. But today I have good news. One of our most famous former citizens, Igor Jones, the famous pro basketball player and insurance company television spokesman, has graciously given this county $85,000 for youth employment for this summer. We are very, very excited about that. And yesterday evening, Mr. Jones, who was coming to visit his mother, stopped by after dinner at his mother's house, at my house, and knocked on the door and presented me for the county that $85,000 check, saying that he had a few specifics, of course, for the use of that money. One, as you may remember, Mr. Jones lived here until he graduated from high school and went straight on to the pros, skipped his college career. Mr. Jones is very concerned with education, as we all are, and is picking up his college courses bit by bit as he continues in his pro career. He is also a spokesman for a very famous national insurance company, and he realized that so many young people here will never afford to have insurance because they can barely afford to have jobs. So Mr. Jones specified that this money was to teach the necessary job skills that young people could either become entrepreneurs or civil servants or well-prepared middle managers in the long run for small companies in this area, knowing that it's unlikely, unless they work hard on commercial development, that any large companies will be here in the next 5 to 10 years. So we are quite excited about this $85,000 gift. Now, since summer has already started, we decided this morning before the press conference to look at what we could do immediately. Well, one of the things that our Parks and Recreation Commission desperately needs is help in mowing and trash. We have, for such a small county, we have 5 enormous parks. They are wonderful parks, but we have a very, very tiny Parks and Recreation group. So we have, at an estimated cost of $3,000 per youth, that includes salaries, the benefits for workers' compensation, et cetera, their boots, their training, their transportation, $3,000 per youth. We will be able to add an additional 20 people to our green team. That's our teen employment program, to teach young people how to be on time, how to be responsible to their team members, how to have pride in their work, to teach them everyday outdoor skills that they can use on their front lawns when we hope that they will all have their own houses and their own front lawns. In addition, we have set out an internship program which will teach young people who will work in various county offices, record keeping, event preparation, office management, inventory control, working with special populations such as seniors and those with severe disabilities, technology, computers, and back to the Parks and Recreation sports program, because so many of them will someday be coaching their own children, and we want them to understand what is involved in sports programming. In all of this, they will learn to be appropriate on the job. And the $85,000, as I said, did have another stipulation, and that was that because Mr. Jones, Igor Jones, is Russian, African American, Native American, and Appalachian, he would like the children that are involved in this program to be evenly divided amongst those 4 groups, and we will attempt to do so as much as possible. So I will now open the floor to anyone in the media who might have a question. Oh, I see that Ms. Kormelink has a question for me. If you'll wait just a second. This is our one and only microphone that our county can afford, so we'll pass that on.
Thank you for that wonderful presentation, but I would like to know, why isn't the Tecumseh County doing more year-round to help with the young people find jobs?
That's a good question, and we are doing some work in working year-round. As you well know, we do have a vocational school for young people who want to work in offices. So we have internships for young people who are working in our fire chief's office, our police chief office, et cetera. They will all eventually receive associate's degrees. And the young man that is in the fire chief's office hopes to be a firefighter. The young woman who is in the police chief's office hopes to be a police officer. We have 3 young people, 2 boys and a girl, who are working in various offices as office temporaries. They are working as receptionists, file clerks, etc., learning about office life. So we're doing a bit, but as you well know, Tecumseh County has a very limited amount of money. Any other questions? Oh, Mr. Swirling here.
Thank you. What can is the county planning to do as far as helping the teens that otherwise have to drop out of school in order to support their families?
Well, Mr. Schwerling, this is a knotty problem. We have struggled with this over the past couple of years I've only been here for a year, so I know a little bit about the history here. I know that over the generations, people have had to drop out. What we are doing right now is working with the school system and the county human services system to work to create programs that will allow these young people to continue to go to school at their own schedules, because these young people sometimes have to work night, have to work days, maybe have to work both ways to either get GEDs or to actually stay in school if they're working at night, to stay in school so that they can continue and get their high school diplomas. So any young person who wishes to complete their education will have that available to them for no additional cost. Are there any other questions?
Ms. Medbaker, there are rumors that Igor Jones has plans to open an insurance agency inside of the county building. Does this gift of $85,000 have anything to do with the county commissioners considering making the center of the county capital, Shawnee, a 5-year tax-free zone for new businesses?
Actually, we hadn't thought about that, but what a great idea. If Mr. Igor Jones is planning to start an insurance agency here in town, we would be thrilled, of course, to have him do so. We have been considering a tax-free zone for quite a while. For the last 6 months, as you know, because you've been attending all of the commissioners' meetings, we have considered having a tax-free zone for the purposes of economic development. Many cities and towns have been doing that to encourage businesses in. Mr. Jones hasn't indicated that that he is interested in opening his own insurance agency, but we would welcome that without any question. And in fact, if anybody knows of someone who would like to start an insurance agency here, that would be a great opportunity for one of our young people to learn about insurance for the ground up. Are there any other questions?
I was just given this one. Back to youth employment. How many teams will you will be working in your office this summer?
Well, Mr. Buil, in my office, the county administrator's office, I plan to have 2 young people work for me. One will work as a research assistant. That is, that they will be answering the phone, taking questions, and working with other offices to understand the correct answers to problems and to get back to the citizen. The second will act as my personal assistant, will attend meetings with me, will help keep me organized, make sure that they understand how things work. So with 2 young people, I believe we can give them a very nice background, and we hope to encourage them to go to college and get involved in public administration. I think we're almost out of time, but I do have time for a couple more questions.
I would like to know, this is an ongoing program, and it sounds like you have this summer well taken care of, but what are the county plans for improving the youth employment possibilities for next summer?
Well, we have been working on this topic for quite a while, and what we are planning for next summer is to involve our local grocery store chain, which is Kroger's, and to involve our local car dealers, who all are always looking for people to work for them, to take an active interest in our program and to have young people work for them, not just next summer, but to work year-round, because the skills that they will learn there will be valuable to them year-round. In addition, our public hospital needs people, and one of the things that we want to work on are creating internships for high school students in our public hospital to encourage young people to pursue careers in medical technology, in nursing, and as doctors. And we are hoping that we might even have a few researchers come out of the group. I think we only have time for one more question. Mr. Schwerling.
Thank you. We appreciate your diligent efforts the past year that you've been in the position of county administrator. What are your plans for the future now that you have that background to plan for the future.
Well, as you know, Mr. Swirling, this past year has been rather bumpy for me, but it appears that the commissioners are now pleased with my performance, and I hope they continue to be pleased. My plans are to stay no less than 5 years with the county, to improve youth employment, to improve commercial development in this area, and to bring up the tax base so that we have enough people here to support the services that we need in a county: police, fire, road, safety, health, etc. And I think that's just about all the time that we have. I'd like to thank everybody for your time and for coming at this last minute to hear our important announcement. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. And now for our next speaker, Stanley Glitchner.
Speaking in public doesn't have to be a death sentence. At Toastmasters, we can help you overcome your fears.
Project number 3 from the Speaking to Inform Advanced Manual. His evaluators, Sheila Mudbaker, will give us his objectives. Let's welcome Sheila.
Thank you, Carol. A demonstration talk. The objectives are to prepare a demonstration speech to clearly explain a process, a product, or an activity, and to conduct that demonstration as part of a speech that is delivered without notes. Now, people may find it difficult to grasp ideas presented only in print or orally, so the process here is explaining in a way that makes sure that the audience understands what the speaker is saying. In a demonstration speech, the speaker shows through actions the process, the product, or the activities. And a demonstration, of course, can be done in several ways. Mr. Buil is speaking from the demonstration talk book, or demonstration talk from Speaking to Inform. In the current book, it has 5 to 7 minutes for the time, but Mr. Buil, working from an older book and looking for much more of a challenge, has extended his to 10 to 12 using the old book. And one of the things that you need to look at, all of you in the audience, is how did the speaker make the talk relevant to your interests? How appropriate was the demonstration? Was it clear? And what could be done to make it more effective? And as I said, it's 10 to 12 minutes and is Toastmaster.
Thank you, Sheila. Joe is going to give us his 6-engine fire talk. 6-engine fire talk, Joe Buil.
Madam Kormelink, and the audience up in the air on television. Today, I'd like to share with you a dream I had a couple of weeks ago, which I thought it was so pertinent for all of us. In this dream, a little lady, which used to work for us back in 1946, since 1946, and retired 30 years later, and she was about 70-some years old, or 80 at the time of retirement. Anyway, the reason I bring her up in here, because she was in the dream. And in this dream, she came over to me, and we were working in our office, and she came to me, Joe, you are going to have a speech tomorrow. I guess she's not a Toastmaster. I suppose I was going to do a speech for somebody else. You have a speech tomorrow, Joe? And that stayed in my mind, and I just couldn't figure out how to handle a speech for tomorrow without any other warning or anything like that. So I brought to you today an idea that came to me in that dream. My mind started to fly around in my dream. I was in the dream, I was sleeping in the dream. So while I was sleeping, all these ideas started to fly around in my head. And all of a sudden, the thing became very clear. The question was, how could I make this experience that is so complicated, because it is complicated, simple. So I cooked up this particularly in this dream, this particular set of suggestions that make a speech simple. A real complicated speech simple. How do we handle these many ideas that are flying around in our head in order to come up with some simple idea? Well, if we follow the ideas by Ernest Dibnett, who wrote a little book many years ago, and of course it's a little old now, but it's good because it's old, and it never dies. It's called The Art of Thinking. Anyway, I was following his suggestions in this dream, and all these things flopping around in my head, and all of a sudden I realized that I had to put things down, and I wrote down. In my dream, I was all dreaming this stuff. I wrote down, and all of a sudden I realized that I needed to do some synthesizing. So I grouped ideas, similar ideas in a group, and similar ideas in another group, and another similar idea in another group. So I divided a number of groups, and in an eclectic form, I selected the main important of this group. So this is the process of synthesizing, because all those ideas, all those main ideas selected, went into focus. And synthesizing means to focus number of ideas into one new creation. All of a sudden, all of this time I was improvising, getting this idea to form a new idea. And improvisation is a good process, or is a necessary process, in order to divest yourself of your earthly controls in your mind, your physical controls, and your mind is working freely. So you improvise in order to come up with this whole idea. It came to me that we are to make a complicated thing simple, complicated process simple. SIMPLE. So I came up with a acronym. So all that other stuff that we had in our minds, all these other worries that we had in our minds are now solved. With an acronym, I don't have to memorize anything. I just converse. Like I was always talking with you and anybody else. Because this is a way to remember what you have to say and you just speak. The L of the part of simple, the L word, the L letter, stands for legitimize. Nobody believes you if you don't make things legitimized. You don't have any credibility if you don't legitimize. And how you legitimize things? By using statistics. This has been proven before. It is true. It's been proven before. But that's not enough. It's not enough, because reason is not enough for reason is not enough reason for acceptance. Other people need to accept these things. So you need to personalize it. Put yourself into the process. Ideas and anecdotes of your own life into the process. For instance, my mom and my dad, many years ago, they got married, and that is statistic. Of course, the result of that marriage is not a statistic, it's me and you and your parents. So you personalize with things of your own and your families and close relatives. The last and most important part of this simple process is to electrify. Electrify the situation. Electrify this process. Electrify the audience. Well, how do you do that? How do you? Have you remember ever touching an electric wire? I have, when I was 6, I decided I would cut an electric wire with a pair of scissors. And I proceeded to do that. And it was a flow of vibrations inside you. I don't know, but it shook me up. Wah! And that's the way you electrify the audience. But how you do that? You do that by being enthusiastic. And all this stuff in here, it pervades over all the other parts. Being enthusiastic. If you're not enthusiastic, nobody else will be. Who else will be? Nobody. Unless you project that enthusiasm. You're not going to electrify anybody. Dead people don't tell any stories. They're all buried 6 foot under. So you got to be alive, enthusiastic. So there you are, folks. It's not such a difficult idea. It's not a difficult proposition to get a speech done in a day or 2, or maybe even less, instead of being complicated. Fire this 6-engine procedure here, and instead of difficult, make it simple, Madam Toastmaster. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Our first evaluator for today to evaluate Steve's speech on a unique week is Verna Gibson. Verna Gibson.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. For Steve's project, he was to create and tell a story based on a personal experience. He was to use vivid descriptions and dialogue to bring the story to life. Steve, I think you did a great job. I found out that in the summer of 1982, you decided that you needed to get out of the rut, and I can understand that. And you chose a very exciting project, rafting with an outward bound group. The other thing that was interesting was that you did not know these other people. Now, I think for me that would take a little extra courage to not know the other people that I was going with, but it sounds very exciting. So Steve got out of his rut. He went whitewater rafting by flying out to Portland, Oregon, and he met his fellow travelers. The story slowly built to a bit of a climax when Steve first told us about the white water, the bugs, the sunburn, so we started to get an idea of what this was like. Then he told us about the Class 3 rapids, and that they would each take turns being a captain in one of these rafts with their guides wading downstream. Now at that point I think I would have been a bit nervous. But Steve got through that with flying colors. Then he came upon Wreck Rapids, and I can just visualize this as Wreck Rapids. The name itself, it just gives me a mental picture of what this rapid was like. And Steve ended up being the captain for this Class 4 Wreck Rapids. Now he did tell us that at the airport where he met his fellow travelers, that they were a motley crew, varied ages, backgrounds, cultures. And I believe if there was one thing that I would have liked to have heard more about, that you might have built on a little bit, Steve, would have been to have told us more about some of these other people. The picture helped, but I really did not feel like I got to know your fellow travelers. You were good with your use of description and dialogue that added color to your story. You talked about the hydraulics of the water, the sun-drenched blue skies, the sagebrush, Mount Hood in the distance, the birds sleeping under the stars with the breeze blowing over your face. You could even hear a train in the distance. You told us that you learned by participating. I thought this was great. Never go through a rapid sideways. And I will remember that if I ever happen to go rafting, which is something I would like to do, but I haven't done yet. But this was a great story, Steve, and it does make me want to go rafting. So I think if I had to say one thing that I would like to have seen a little bit of more improvement on, would be to give us a better picture of what some of the other characters, this motley crew, was like. I would have liked to have learned more about them. But all in all, it was a great story, and I do want to go rafting.
Our next evaluator for Sheila Baker's youth employment presentation will be Joe Schwerling. Joe Schwerling.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Fellow Toastmasters and Sheila, I think you did an excellent job on this press conference. Again, the project was to be giving a press conference in an adversarial situation and maintaining control during the question and answer section, which is actually longer than the prepared section. And that's frequently the most difficult part to handle. First of all, you're, as always, you're very professionally dressed. Your appearance, your presentation style, your body language, your gestures all give a very professional appearance appropriate for your job and the press conference that you're giving. It was obvious that there was a lot of excellent preparation leading up to giving this press conference, and a press conference like that, again, with the question and answers that can come from unexpected sources and get into unplanned areas, can be very difficult to handle. So the more preparation and kind of internal brainstorming about the types of questions that you might come up against, and having that in mind really comes in helpful. And again, as a little sidebar for Toastmasters, that's what our Tabletopics session is designed to help with, being able to answer questions on an impromptu basis in an organized fashion as a little mini speech with an opening body and a conclusion that really nails down the point very concisely. I particularly like the fact that you were able to conclude the press conference questions by turning that last question into a positive statement on what your plans for the future were. That's a good technique, trying to keep all the questions as positive as possible, and particularly ending on a positive note. So I'm sure you all learned a lot about from your press conference, and I'm sure everyone will expect a more continuing career as in your position as county administrator. Thank you, Sheila.
Thank you. Evaluator to evaluate Joe Buil's fire engine talk will be Sheila Baker. Let us welcome Sheila.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. This was a demonstration talk, and the purposes are spelled out as follows. How did the speaker make the talk relevant to the audience's interest? Well, I think introducing a topic in a dream is something where most of us, everyone, or most of us anyway, have had an anxiety dream, usually about exams or last-minute projects. But we do know that the average person is a little anxious about public speaking. And this is a perfect setup, that in a dream, you suddenly discover you have to give a speech. And that involves great anxiety. And I rather liked the way Joe tied in a lady who worked for him. So he knew somehow this wasn't quite right. But on the other hand, here she is telling him he should give this speech. Secondly, we have to look at the impact of that demonstration on how it was conducted. I liked having the poster in front of me, and Joe gave us a little 8.5 by 11 paper with that information on it, spelling out the synthesized, the improvised, it's simple, personalize, legitimize, electrify. All of those things were spelled out. As a matter of fact, I have it in front of me, and I already forgot that I had it in front of me. I like that so much that I would like to say that this could have improved the speech even more. As much as I liked the big poster, for a television with only one camera, you could have had an S page, an I page, etc. And this way, the camera could have caught exactly what the words were. because one of the things that I saw as a problem with the television audience, and it wouldn't have been necessarily with a regular audience without TV, would be that when you started to turn your mic back slightly, your voice was not directed towards the microphone, which means that our audience may not have heard every word. So it's very, very important that everyone can see and hear in television. I think it was clear and complete as a presentation, and it's a great demonstration on how to conduct a last-minute speech, how to determine very quickly those things that need to happen. A couple of improvements, and one I didn't notice because obviously I can't spell, is that simple was in the wrong order, but I didn't notice because Joe was so convincing on his presentation that if he told me it was S-I-M-P-L-E, I believed it, even if it was in a different order. I think the use of Joe's stories, personal stories to go along with each one of those incidences in each area made it much more effective. The only question I had was, besides the pictures of the fire engines, what does it have to do with 6 engines? I must have missed that, and I would have liked to have had a reason why those fire engines. And I think a way to tie that back is also in my dream there were fire engines. You immediately, which made me aware that I had danger. Then, every time a fire engine appeared, people would have this sense of strong anxiety, and they'd understand why that was there. All in all, very good demonstration speech.
About Toastmasters. The TV Toastmasters at the Anderson Union Township Studio will be on Saturday, July the 19th, and we would welcome you to come as our guest. There is a number on the screen that you may call if you would like more information. And our meeting is adjourned.